right? Like, I think my longer term dream for Ethereum is basically that all that a staker will have to do is just download and verify a bunch of data, verify once an arc, and then sign something. And if that's the case, then like staking on mobile phones is going to be extremely viable, right? Like even if you have a phone on the go, most likely, because it will not consume a huge amount of battery. The only thing it will consume a huge amount of is bandwidth, right? But like, I think it will take 5 or 10 years to get there. Yep. There's obviously the question of like just how many other things we could use the merge as an opportunity to reform, and I think we did manage to reform some things, but a lot of other things did manage to like basically stay as they are. I mean, like right now, the Ethereum clients are still processing the pre-merge chain, right? And there was a desire, I think, to use the merge as a reset opportunity and allow Ethereum clients to not have to process that history. And I think that still will happen with EIP 4444, but that's something that we're going to have to wait a bit longer for. So there's just a lot of these little things on which the ambition of the project decreased a bit, but it slowly turned into a more and more realistic thing. And then, finally we settled on a design, and we even settled on a very simplified design for the merge, and then we went for it. So there's two questions there, I think. One is, what is the better long-term form of proof of stake? And the other is, if the research team and only the research team had 500 years to spin its wheels, could it have come up with a better way of managing the transition? So for the first question, I think the answer is like, no, we are currently very far from what a truly optimal Ethereum proof of stake would look like, right? And, recently we've been having these discussions about single slot finality, which is just a big redesign of the consensus. There's all of these designs around like Merkle trees and different ways to implement sharding and different ways to implement deposit and withdrawal logic and all of this stuff. So still a lot of improvement work to go, and I think we do still have the opportunity to keep working hard over the next few years to make that improvement actually happen. But then on the question of was the merge as it was done the best way to do the transition? I would say maybe yes, maybe no, right? Where like I do think that we set ourselves goals that were a little bit too high for the proof of stake that we moved to for the first round, and we even ended up not accomplishing some of those goals, right? Like there's a lot of these security issues that arose from the specific design of the Proof-of-G system and the way that the LMD Ghost and Fork Choice side and the BFT consensus side like interact with each other. And that's one of the bigger things that we're going to have to resolve with the single slot finality change. So yeah, basically I think create a simpler and less powerful proof of stake and move to it earlier would have been one of the bigger changes that I would have made. But the format of the merge, I think, was excellent. Like, I still don't think that there's a better merge format that we could have come up with, and I definitely hope that other chains like Zcash and Dogecoin are probably two proof-of-work chains whose core dev communities I talk to a lot and I'm pretty friendly with. Like, I hope they learn from the merge and they move over to proof-of-stake over the next 4 years or so. I mean, definitely, had we known the results of the meanderings, it would have been great if we could just skip to the result immediately, right? So the design of the proof-of-stake system and all of the choices of, like, should it be a chain or a smart contract or something else is one side of it. The other side of it is the layer 2 scaling roadmap. Like, I think Optimism and Arbitrum could have been finished and fully trustless by now had we known from the start that rollups are the way to go, and we had not spent as many resources kind of going down the state channels and plasma rabbit holes. Like, I think going down those rabbit holes was useful from the point of view of, like, inventing 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And I do think that state channels make a lot of sense in some specific use cases, but I definitely think that we made a false step in like at first really hoping that that would be the way that Ethereum applications would scale in general. And then with Plasma, like there was this hope that we could find some way to generalize it, but that ended up just not working. And then 2 years later, I think we ended up learning that, like, well, actually pretty much nobody wants a scaled Ethereum that's just a payment system. Everyone who's in Ethereum already wants something general purpose, and so there's no point in making even a rollup unless it's a general purpose one. Sure. So I think one way of looking at it from a trajectory of the protocol point of view is to look at the roadmap from last year and basically ask how much progress has been made, right? So if, let me just Google this now, and I'll check Ethereum roadmap on Google Images, and I'm sure it'll be up there. There it is. If we want, so just looking at the 5 tracks, right, we can go through the tracks one by one. So the merge is completed now. The things in the merge section that are not completed are, one is the post-merge hard fork with withdrawals, right? That's obviously the one of the next big priorities right after the merge. It's a pretty simple hard fork, and like we basically know what to do. There's a spec. I think the main debate at this point is to do it at the same time as 4844 or do it earlier and then do 4844 a bit later. But you know, otherwise it's like we're not far from it. That's definitely a good and very important question. So changes to the economics of staking that I could see happening. One of them might be that I think there are ways to make the deposit and withdrawal queues faster, at least in the normal case. So things like allow a huge amount of deposits and withdrawals to happen if the chain finalizes. So that'll just make the experience for validators easier. And that'll also reduce the incentive to participate in stake pools, and it'll make it easier to have smaller and more decentralized stake pools, for example. So that's one. Then number 2 would be changes to the MEV architecture would obviously affect the economics of staking. Like even today, the MEV revenue is a pretty significant portion of staking revenue, right? And like there is some economic benefit to participating in MEV Boost. But that's something that'll obviously change a lot, and especially if the Ethereum protocol includes some form of enshrined proposer builder separation. And that will reduce the variance of staking revenue, which also reduces the incentive to be part of a stake pool. So a lot of little changes like that, I think, are going to happen as a result of some changes to staking that can happen. The system requirements of having a staking node hopefully will decrease over time, especially as things like stateless disks come in, and probably even more once ZK snarks come in. Right, like I think my longer-term dream for Ethereum is basically that all that a staker will have to do is just download and verify a bunch of data, verify one snark, and then sign something. And if that's the case, then like staking on mobile phones is going to be extremely viable, right? Like even if you have a phone on the go, most likely, because it will not consume a huge amount of battery. The only thing it will consume a huge amount of is bandwidth, right? But I think it will take 5 or 10 years to get there. But you know, I'm hopeful. I think this actually gets into one of these bigger challenges and like trade-offs in the single slot finality roadmap, right? So in the single slot finality roadmap, basically the idea would be that instead of instead of all validators participating over the course of 32 slots, you would have every validator staking and sending a message during every individual slot. And if you do that, then there's basically 2 ways to do this, right? One way is what we call super committees, where basically you don't literally have every validator staking in every slot. You have like some subset, but it's a pretty big subset. So that's one approach. And if you take that approach, then it should be very possible to reduce the minimum ETH deposit size at the same time. The other approach would be to say, well, you know, we are just going to literally have every validator stake in every slot. And this is something that realistically would do some combination of increasing the load on the network and reducing the number of validators that the network can support. Now, one nice thing that it'll be able to do is it'll be able to basically remove the need for individual validators to have multiple slots, right? Like someone who has 10,000 ETH, they'll be able to just have one slot that's just 10,000 ETH. And there's some technical reasons why we can't do that today that have to do with like shuffling and committee assignment, but both of those things would go away if we have single slot finality and if we have dank sharding. The one nuance though is that we would not be able to like have a hard guarantee of 32 ETH. Of it being possible to stake with 32 ETH, right? Basically because, like, we would not be able to know what the distribution of other stakers is, right? Like, we'd be able to support a maximum of, maybe about 130,000 validators, or maybe a bit more, but if it just so happens that everyone who has a lot of ETH still chooses to split their ETH up into like 32 ETH, just, either because the wealth distribution turns out that way or because like some people just want to be mean and take up more slots, then like unfortunately the minimum staking amount might end up like increasing a little bit higher than 32 ETH, right? And that's one of the risks of that approach. But at the same time, the benefit of that approach will be a lot more protocol simplicity, a lot more security. The chain would like finalize and you would get up to maximum security after like 32 seconds will be a number that I think could be realistic to hope for. But on the other hand, if you wanted to try to optimize for having some native ability to stake with like 1 ETH or 4 ETH, then we would need to talk about much bigger validator set sizes and bigger, like needing to handle a larger number of validators at the same time. But also having this like super committee mechanism, and then there would be more complexity and there would be more different kinds of trade-offs. And yeah, so basically, you either get one really good thing and you sacrifice a bit on the other side, or you get a different really good thing, but then you sacrifice in other ways.